Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
What's up, saucers? What's up, saucers?
What up, playa?
We are here for you again on this gorgeous Monday or whatever day you want to listen to this. We don't judge you. However you found us, whenever you found us, thank you. And if you're here for us, we're here for you.
You sound like a 1950s like radio and if you're here for us, we're here for you.
We're here for us. We're here for us. We're here for you. AmeriCorps for you.
AmeriCorps.
For the people, for the children, and for your pocketbooks. Ladies, smoke your Virginia Slims.
Wow, we need to get some sponsors so that you can read all the ads like that.
Guys, we need sponsors. If you're a sponsor out there.
Yeah, if you're a sponsor, if you know someone that wants to sponsor podcasts.
Hey, Molly.
Hit us up. Yes.
Wouldn't you say we should get creative to get sponsors?
Yes. Alyssa, I would love to know your take on creativity. Maybe we should do... Wait, should we... Oh my God, let's do an episode on this.
On creativity?
Yeah. Let's just go off the cuff.
But I don't see, this is the thing when people talk about creativity. It's like, I just feel like some people don't think they're creative because they didn't get a bachelor in fine arts or a bachelor of arts and they didn't, you know what I mean? So it's like, they're going to feel left out of this conversation, right?
Yeah, so they should probably leave because this is for creatives only. And that means musicians, artists, painters, and writers.
Only.
Only.
Those are the only types of artists.
Yes.
Not dancers. Fuck you.
I said artists, didn't I? That's very vague. Yes, meaning actors, dancers. Otherwise, get out.
Exactly.
Anyway, guys, this episode is called Who Are the Gatekeepers to Creativity? And we're talking about this exactly because what does it truly mean to be creative, to be a creative, and to live a creative life? There's a lot of, well, we live in a capitalist society. So there's a lot of things that are programmed into us that are incorrect. And we're going to break some of that down. Yeah.
I would say that we hear all the time people saying, oh, I'm not creative, or using their profession as proof that they're not creative people. Not only is that dangerously limiting a belief system, but it's also entirely inaccurate. Creativity is a defining characteristic of human beings and intelligent life in general. With self-awareness comes creativity, and we are an extremely self-aware species. We have arbitrarily decided that creativity only lies in certain ways of living. And I think that is really harmful, you know, and it is like that. I think people don't know how to allow themselves to kind of expand, you know what I mean? When they're in certain fields or think that they have to, I don't know, limit themselves. Does that make sense?
And and also just not recognizing the creativity that does exist that they're already doing, because we think of creativity is put in a box of meaning art, but it doesn't even have to mean that, because honestly, some of the most creative people in this world are accountants and getting around tax shit. And I mean, you can't tell anybody
that those books for some people.
And you can't tell anybody that Steve Jobs was not a creative. And all of these great minds in math and science and these industries that are considered. So we have the arts and then we have science, the sciences, and it's like we separate things so much. And you probably hear the same, Melissa, because we're both artists. So people throughout our lives come up to us all the time and are like, oh, I'm not creative. I could never do what you do. Oh my gosh, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And it's like, and it's meant as a compliment, but they're being really dismissive of their own being, like who they even are, what they do, because, you know, artists in a traditional sense are not the gatekeepers to creativity at all. There's different types of creativity. Lawyers are extremely creative, like doctors, surgeons, all of these things where it's like, oh, we couldn't get around, you know, this, we had to move around this aorta to like creativity is everywhere you look.
Yep.
And we have a small little view of it. And then by people telling themselves this internal dialogue and these stories, to yourself, I'm not a creative person. That's just not who I am. And I move through the world knowing that. I just go and do my job and come home and, oh, but I'm not creative. You're cutting off so much of the world.
Yeah. This reminds me of, I remember my dear, lovely cousin, who's basically an epidemiologist, and who's studying diseases and it's just amazing things.
Yeah.
And she had said something like, you know, I forget what the context was, but it's basically like just saying, yeah, she had complimented me and my sister for being artists and had said something along the lines of like what you had said, that like I never do something like that. That's why I'm in science. Like my field is in science. And I remember thinking about that. I was like, no, like you don't understand how the creativity that you need in your job.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you think about it, it's like every facet of what you do and so many people do involves an immense well of creativity.
Yes.
You have to think outside the box. You have to stretch your mind. You have to test theories. That's creativity. Testing
it is
and
like,
a hypothesis and testing it and see if it fails. That's creativity.
Problem solving is creativity.
Yes.
When you're trying to figure out how to rearrange your home, your furniture, or what you're going to wear, or how you're going to make it to 3 places you have to be to that day. Like you have to problem solve. That's creativity. And so Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer Elizabeth, I know, I do too. Her so many quotes of hers that I just, they kill me, they melt me. But she stated, if you're alive, you're a creative person. And then she explained further and said, how many times have you heard someone say, I don't have a creative bone in my body? It's like somebody handed that person the placard to wear when they were 9, and they've been wearing it around their neck ever since. But rather than challenging them on that, because they'll dig in their heels, I ask them to take the word creative out of the sentence and replace it with the word curious, just to see how ridiculous it sounds. If you can just release yourself from the anxiety and burden that might be associated with the word creativity, because you've fallen for the myth that it only belongs to the special, the tormented, and the professional, and you insert the word curious, you'll see, in fact, that you are an enormously creative person, because all creativity begins with curiosity. And once you tap into your curiosity and allow yourself permission to follow it wherever it takes you, you'll find very quickly that you are living a much more creative life than you were last year.
This kind of
love that.
You know, I feel like a downfall of this and why people have this kind of mindset, I think is, I mean, we could start with our education system, and teachers can do as much as they can. But at the end of the day, if like these kids aren't inspired, they're not inspired. Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
And I also think there is something to, you know, not having the arts funded, and not having like, what's the word? Like, you know, well-known creative outlets, you know, like generally known creative outlets.
Yeah.
Not having those fostered. I feel like a lot of people that do decide to do, you know, the traditional creative routes, you know, or major in those things or learn those things, I feel like there's a kind of, not stigma, but like you kind of look down your nose at it because you don't have the arts in your school. You don't have a lot of those programs in your school. So
wait, you mean so people that choose creative jobs?
Yeah. So basically, like I'm thinking about school. Like if you grew up in a school system that didn't have a lot of arts programs, you don't surround yourself with people that completely identify themselves as creatives. So if that's not funded, you're not around people that already have that kind of juice flowing. So there's nothing to kind of be inspired by. I feel like it's all kind of a mixture of why, I don't know, why people don't push themselves or believe in themselves, because I don't know. I feel like the educational system has something to do with it.
It's true. And
there's no inspiration.
I just had a conversation with one of my friends from college, and so I've known him a really long time, and we weren't that close in college, but he recently told me, he's like, you know, because he does music now, and he told me, it's like, you know, you doing what you did and, you know, focusing on music and aiming to be a musician as your career, like the whole time I've known you, really made an impact on me. And I remember in college, I remember you like driving away with everything in your car and going to LA and just to pursue music. And I remember thinking I had so much respect and admiration for that. And I felt like, wow, I could never do that. I admire you. I really looked up to you. And he was like telling me a lot about, you doing this at this time, bringing up specific things he remembered of my shows or like coming to my shows over the years, and then me moving out here and all this stuff. And now we're 33 and he's doing it. And he's like, I just really, honestly, in college, I didn't think, I never was presented with a creative thing being an actual career. And until I met you and another friend of his in college, he's like, you two were always doing music. And I remember being like, wow, you can really do that? Some people are doing that. And I was so afraid to still for years. Now he's doing it. But we had this whole conversation. And I'm like, man, they're so limited. I mean, you're in college thinking, I can't do that. And you're only like 20, it's just like, man.
I think in that respect, I think you stifle so much of your own creativity when you're not surrounded by people that wear that badge of honor. You know what I mean? That are very open about it. And therefore you kind of get stuck in a loop of your own limited beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It's interesting. But the definition of creativity is the use of the imagination of original ideas. What human being has never used their imagination or had an original idea? While you may be out of practice, the ability within you never leaves you. Creativity basically exists wherever something new and valuable is formed. And that's, you know what I mean? Like that's the truth of it. You know what I mean?
It's so basic.
Yeah. Like when I was a kid, and it's going back, I'm trying to go back to like, where does the root of this happen? But like my imagination was just always so wild. And I think that's why I became an actor and why I'm writing now. I just like, it kind of never went away, but it did. I don't know. You can stifle yourself.
If you guys if you guys want to tap back into some of Alyssa's childhood imagination, we have an episode where she talks about talking out of her butt cheeks. So we can go back to that one. That was in Core Memories, I believe. So
that is a great example of the wild imagination of little Alyssa. But it was fostered because I had parents that loved the arts. Yeah. You know what I mean? And a sister too that loved the arts and was in the creative, you know what I mean? So I felt fostered myself. But there's so many people that don't. And they'll limit their, even as a kid, they'll limit their imagination. Yeah. Maybe they're bullied, or maybe they don't have an outlet for their imagination. Yep. What do you do with your imagination as a young kid if you have nowhere to put it on, when you get older, what does that do to you? And even now, like we do so many things because we're taught that it's the way to do them. I had this moment, I do these things. Sometimes they'll come to me and then I'm like, okay, this is one of those moments where I can choose to like break free of these. And they're really arbitrary, unimportant, stupid little things. But for example, my mom came one time, my parents came to visit. My mom brought me baked like a banana bread loaf that she had baked. And so it was in my kit. They were gone. And it was just, I live here alone. So I'm like, I'm not having to follow rules for anybody else's sake. And I was like, man, I just really want like, I was cutting a couple slices because I just wanted to eat the top. The top of the bread is the best part. So I was like, I was cutting multiple slices. And then I was like, what the fuck, Molly? Like, why don't you just cut the top off the goddamn bread? Because you're the only one that lives here. Why are you slicing it? You're just like doing what we're told to do. Who says slice bread? And I literally cut the top off the whole loaf and ate the top of the banana bread. And I was like, why not? But I think it's important to continuously do those things, stupid little things like that for ourselves that force us to acknowledge, like, I don't have to follow suit here. Like, this is unimportant, and I can be a little more imaginative in my daily life in the way that I live. Yeah. And why am I just like cutting a slice and eating the top? Like, obviously, if you live in a house with a bunch of people, you can't do that. But, like, think about the things you can break free from. Life's too short to live by a rule book. You have to think and color outside of the lines, otherwise I don't know. The days are going to go by so fast and there's going to look like the same one from before. And we've all been there, but it's just like, it's such a waste of time because you have an imagination. You do. Everyone does. Foster it. Don't shame it. In an article published in the UK for teachers to incorporate creative activities in the classroom, they are instructed on the following. If you want to run a creative activity in the classroom, you need to check for the presence of these 4 features: imagination, purpose, originality, and value, and organize the process in a way that all of these can be incorporated. As you can see, these 4 features can be applied to any subject matter, not just art and music. That is why it is inaccurate to assign the badge of creativity to certain professions or personality types and not others. I love this idea. I think this is so amazing. Like, what is it? Imagination, purpose, originality, and value. I mean, if you're if you're training your brain to always think about those things, like, there's no stopping you.
And the fact that it says, you know, it's inaccurate to assign the badge of creativity to only to certain personality types too, because like we were talking professions, but personality types as well, because it's so easy. And also Elizabeth Gilbert's earlier quote saying like, you know, it's like someone gave you this placard when you were 9 and you just wear it around your neck your whole life. My dad remembers being in music class when he was 9. And he said, I don't know, his teacher had him sing something in front of the class. So he's in like 3rd grade and he sings it. And then she told him, well, Thomas, some of us are singers and some of us are listeners. And from that point on, he was like, oh, I guess I'm a listener. And like never was like, I can't sing. I don't sing. I can't. And he, you know, it's just like teachers have so much responsibility, and kids should not be told those things at an early, I mean, anytime, but especially the formative age where 9 years old and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not a singer. That's a fact now. And I can move on with that. Now, like knowing that knowledge, now this is another piece of who I am that I have put to that. Now I know. And then you hold on to that forever.
Oh, that happened to me many times. I remember I was singing Mandy Moore to my mom, and then she looks at me and she goes, you're like one of those people on American Idol that think they can sing and they can't.
No, no.
And I was like, oops. I thought I was like literally, I mean, like she probably was doing me a favor. I thought I sounded exactly like Mandy Moore.
My God.
But I mean, writing, that happened to me with writing too. I had a writing teacher that completely shit on me. So, I mean, the gatekeeping of creativity happens within the creative fields as well. Yes. So, of course, it's going to bleed over into the non-creative, traditional creative roles and career. I mean,
and it happens like you said, you with writing, that's like one of your greatest gifts is your writing. And so it happened to you with your, like, your actual skill set. Like you're saying, it's that gatekeepers of creativity are not just outside of the realm.
No. So of course it's going to bleed into it. You know what I mean? Like we understand what it's like to be, you know, gatekept by certain things, people telling you, you don't belong here. You don't, you know what I mean? You're not good enough. Like you have to be, you know, this tortured, depressed, like
starving
you're
artist.
bleeding. Yes. Bleeding for your art, literally sometimes.
Yeah.
For you to be considered an actual creative and a creative mind, you know what I mean? When it's just, it's not true at all. And I feel like that's exactly why people are stopping their imagination. They're stopping finding, you know, the purpose and originality and value in their mind and in their problem solving. It's just,
and I think like when there's too much separation for kids growing up between, let's use the word, I mean the word work, but like work and play, where it's like, okay, it's playtime now. So now you can use your imagination. Like you can turn it on now. Okay, now we're back to work. And there shouldn't be a harsh line like that, you know? And so then that alone, that already, I think that's why my friend from college that I was mentioning, he never really thought about it as like a serious pursuit as a career, because it's like, well, that's something that's, and a lot of people think like this, like, oh, those are things you do for fun. Those are hobbies. Those are hobbies.
Exactly. You don't make money off of hobbies.
Yeah. And what makes something, if it's your passion, it's more than a hobby. What you're doing doesn't make it a hobby. It's how passionate about it you are. So I have hobbies, but my passion is sure as hell not a hobby. And so there's things that it gets convoluted, and kids get told all the time, like, oh, no, like, don't do that here. Or, you know, that's for later. Or it's so hard because you have to give them, you know, parameters to work within, and they're kids and they need to be, there's so many, it's impossible to, I think, to raise another human being and not fuck them up. But, but these are important things, I think, to instill in children.
It makes sense. It makes sense why they turn their nose at it, because they don't know any better, you know, or to not even turn your nose at it, or just ignore that part of themselves.
Yeah. According to an article online from the American Psychological Association entitled The Science of Creativity, despite the widely held belief that some people just aren't endowed with the creativity gene, there's not really any evidence that one person is inherently more creative than another. Instead, creativity is something that anyone can cultivate. There's literally no proof that there are people who are more creative than other people. It's how much they obviously cultivated their creativity to a point where it's now superior to most people's, but inherently, no one is more creative than another. That's important to state, because there's also a lot of entitlement and ego that comes with creativity.
Yes. I have an anecdote about that, and also kind of what we were talking about before with like being inspired by like keeping people around you that are creative in some way. I remember our very first meeting at Stories talking about the podcast, and like we were just going on a roll, like just hours and hours and hours until the night. Like,
and for people listening, we were like trying to figure out what our podcast was going to even be, like what it would be called, what we would talk about. We had nothing yet.
Had so many ideas about topics, everything, and we were just on a roll, and it was so fun. And then literally like, and this was coming from, talk about stifling creativity, this was coming from when, you know, we were just working at our restaurant, and auditions were really slow for me back then, and I had literally nothing going on but the restaurant job. And it wasn't until we were like building this podcast that day, you know what I mean? We just had this whole idea that day, of all these ideas. The next day, I was just so inspired. I literally was like, Ryan, I have a song in my head and I want to write a song.
I remember that.
And like, he was like, I mean, I don't think we never finished it. It was just something like I had a beat in my dream and I needed to like put the beat down.
Yeah.
And then I had some lyrics. So I was like, I guess I was like kind of writing too, like in my head. I think we only got like a verse or a chorus down. But we went to his studio to try and like make something of it. But it was like, it was that kind of creative juice. I am not a songwriter by any means, but it's just, it didn't matter. Like I had one kind of gate open for me, and then I had a fuck ton more come in.
Yes.
And it's just, and here we are. And it's like, I think about that. I do, if you can see on YouTube, if you're watching us, I have a paint by numbers back there that's like very sparsely done. That also helps me be like that muscle of creativity.
Yes, it's a muscle.
And it doesn't have to be one creative outlet that you're using it on. It's like once you start training your brain to just look at things differently, you're going to look at everything differently. And you're going to figure out that you're like, wait, I have a skill set here because I just allowed myself to open up here. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yes,
like you dared be confident in one area of your life, you're going to be confident and imaginative in another. It's just going to be a building block and a domino effect of what's possible.
Yes. And creativity breeds creativity. So you could be doing it in like exactly what you're saying. And I remember that you describing that next day to me, because it was
Molly.
because it was like really powerful, because we were opening our own world up in that moment, and like, well, we could do this and this and this and this, and we were just in such a rut and an unhappy place with our jobs, you know. And it was just like, I mean, I had just been fired, so I didn't have one at the moment, but like we were both just into this rut, and we were just there, you know. And so it's one of those things where you can, you know, you can't force creativity, but there is there's a fine line, because then people are like, well, I don't want to force anything, so I just haven't felt creative in a while, and they just don't work on their craft for a while. There are phases where you don't, but overall, you do have to force yourself to sit down and try from time to time, because, okay, maybe you sit down, you got nothing, and you're in a creative block. That's real. That's a thing, and you don't always create. But you do have to try to tap in somewhat frequently and see what happens, because once you break into it, it can flow out of you. But you won't know if you don't even, like, it was like 2 nights ago. My friend was over here. We're working on a beat for a song. Actually, he was showing me how to use certain software and on the computer for producing beats. And so just like little samples and little examples. And he put 2 pieces together that, like, all of a sudden I heard this melody. I started humming it. And then these words came to me. Within 5 minutes, I had a whole verse to it. I had the next, like, a whole song is being created right now, that if he hadn't just come over and been like, here's how you use the software, I'll do an example and show you, that song doesn't exist. Yeah. So you never know when there's something that's just going to happen and trigger something completely new. Like, if I was like, oh, can we meet next week and do it? Okay, he comes over next week. Maybe a new song is created, but maybe nothing comes of it. If it hadn't happened right in that moment, you have to capture it.
Absolutely. It is like a floodgate that opens.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to chase that feeling.
Yeah. It's addicting.
Yeah. Is it me?
You have your thing.
Is it me? Oh,
is it me?
So psychologist Dr. Robert Epstein, a visiting scholar at the University of California, San Diego, has conducted research showing that strengthening 4 core skill sets leads to an increase in novel ideas. This is because creativity can become a habit. Exactly what we're saying. So Epstein recommends that you capture your new ideas. Keep an idea notebook or a voice recorder with you. Type in new thoughts on your laptop or write ideas down on a napkin. Journaling, you know what I mean? All of these things is capturing what's in here down somewhere else.
Because it will go away.
It will go away. Yeah, you need to do something with it. Don't, and it's also honoring it at the same time. It's not even just like the remembering, it's the honoring of it. It's giving life to it instead of it just being a fleeting moment or thought. Yeah. You need to also seek out challenging tasks. Take on projects that don't necessarily have a solution, such as trying to figure out how to make your dog fly or how to build a perfect model of the brain. This causes old ideas to compete, which helps generate new ones. It's like that floodgate that we're talking about, but like with something that would seem impossible to you. And I feel like writing a song would have sounded impossible to me. I mean, it is still like sort of impossible, but like, I don't know. I was just like, you just, did it all of a sudden because of our podcast meeting. I was like, it opened. Like exactly what it says. It caused old ideas to compete and generate new ones. It was so fun. Also, you need to broaden your knowledge. Take a class outside psychology or read journals in unrelated fields. He suggests that makes more diverse knowledge available for interconnection, which is the basis for all creative thought. He says, ask for permission to sit in on lectures for a class on 12th century architecture and take notes. You'll do better in psychology and life if you broaden your knowledge. I mean, that's a really good, I really recommend, you know what I recommend is an easy one, and I feel like you can get creative. I recommend Cosmos. Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's on Hulu.
Oh, yes. I love watching those.
You will learn your dick off. Yeah. And you'll just feel inspired because it's like you feel small, but like also you just feel like there's just so much possibility in the universe. So there's so much possibility in your universe. Anyway,
I love that.
The last thing that Epstein recommends is to surround yourself with interesting things and people, really echoing like what we were talking about, you know, regular dinners with diverse and interesting friends and a workspace festooned with out-of-ordinary objects will help you develop more original ideas. You can also keep your thoughts lively by taking a trip to an art museum or attending an opera, anything that stimulates new thinking. And that's 100%. You have to foster that brain by being around people that foster it as well.
Yes. And doing different activities. Like earlier in the year, I remember seeing that the Broad Museum downtown was had an exhibit that I wanted to go see, it was a Basquiat exhibit, and I was like, and it wasn't even about, so I didn't go with any interesting people. I didn't go with anyone, but my point was that I went on my own, and I was like, I want to go to this museum right now, today or whenever I could. And I just went and like went through the whole exhibit, took it in for myself. And it was like, not a normal daily activity, but infusing your life with moments like that. And definitely having a diverse and interesting friend network, and not having, like, I really urge everybody to, this isn't a judgment on who your actual friends are, because hopefully they're really nice people. But if you get around your friend group and everybody looks like you, you need more people in that. I'm not saying cut those people out, because they could be great people, but like I think you need to diversify your life a little bit, because it's like you learn so much from being around people who have different upbringings than you, different lived experiences, different backgrounds, like different everything really. And then you obviously become friends because you share core beliefs, and that's really what can bond people. But I love when I am like thinking of who my friends are, and I want to invite this person, and then seeing how many different types of people there are. Yeah. It makes me happy, because I'm like, okay, this is where I'm getting my life. This is who's coloring my life. These people are creating me, because I choose to give my time and energy to them. So they have a huge hand in who I am. So yeah, I think, and that's on all of us. That's our own responsibility to do.
Hell yeah.
Creativity researchers suggest that you, quote, sleep on it. So in a 1993 study at Harvard, psychologist Deidre Barrett, PhD, asked her students to imagine a problem they were trying to solve before going to sleep, and found that they were able to come up with novel solutions in their dreams. In the study, half of the participants reported having dreams that addressed their chosen problems. That's a lot. Half of them actually, like, you imagine something before you go to bed, and then it's actually in your dream. Half of them, and a quarter of them came up with solutions in their dreams.
That I relate to that.
Really? Yeah. So, she says we're in a different biochemical state when we're dreaming, and that's why I think dreams can be so helpful anytime we're stuck in our usual mode of thinking. What do you have an example of that?
I mean, I feel like I have very I work things out in my dreams often. So, and it's usually in the midst of, like, you know, a writing session, you know, or a reading that's coming up, or auditions, or something that I'm about to shoot. I don't know. Like, I problem solve a lot in my dreams. Like, sometimes they're lucid, sometimes they're not. But they only happen when I'm being fed in my actual life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Go to our Patreon. We just talked about some of our dreams.
We did. Yeah. Some very weird dreams. You guys should tap into our Patreon if you haven't, because it's where it gets real.
I mean, the song was in my dream first. Yeah. Literally, I had a dream about a circus when I was 14, and I wrote a novel. I didn't. It wasn't finished. When I was 14, and then I was like, I'm a bad writer, because a teacher told me I was, or just shit on me. And then I hadn't written anything. And then with my friends just last year, we were like thinking about different things that we could make a show out of. And then we're like, space, circus, literally, like, just because of a dream I had when I was 14, I am now writing an audio drama about you know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah,
I don't know. I
love that.
The inspiration and problem solving in dreams. It's real. It is real. Yeah,
it is real.
Research by Washington State University professor of interior design, Janetta Mitchell-McCoy, PhD, suggests that spending time in natural settings may boost creativity. In a 2002 creativity research journal study led by McCoy, high school students designed more innovative collages as judged by 6 independent raters. In a setting high in direct sunlight and natural wood than in a space mainly finished with manufactured materials such as drywall and plastic. Oh, I believe that 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you know, that also made me think of gentrification in general, where there's these nice areas of a city where you go, because you go to those neighborhoods and there's so much grass and green trees and like dividers in the middle of the lanes that are just like lush with plant life, and neighborhoods are just like so green. And then you go to the hood or somewhere else and it's like a food desert. You have like a million 7-Elevens. There's maybe one little weak tree that's sticking out of a sidewalk somewhere. Like, it's really, it really affects quality of life, obviously. And we've done episodes on the benefits on mental health, of course, of nature. But for creativity as well, like I had an apartment for a while. I lived in an apartment for a year that had very limited sunlight, and it was really hard. It was really hard. It was just, mental health wise, but also creatively. And it was, I had my whole little like recording studio set up in there, and I had all my tools there and everything, and it was good, soundproofed well and everything. But I just was like, I can't.
Yeah,
I'm stuck.
Yeah, I get it. It's why a lot of companies and a lot of artists have retreats. You know what I mean? They have them in the woods primarily. That would be weird if they had a retreat at like, I don't know, a Holiday Inn, which I guess that happens too. But it's there are a lot of retreats that happen at like campsites and stuff like that, because there's something extremely motivating and
clear your mind. Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, anytime you imagine the life that you want to be living, anytime you've thought like, oh, I would love to have this job, or I'd love to live here, or I'd love to have this type of family. Anytime you imagine the life you want to be living, anytime you solve a problem, anytime you talk hypothetical situations with a friend, like, oh my God, what if this happened? Oh my gosh, what would you do? Anytime you rearrange the furniture in your home, you're being creative all the time. This is creativity. This isn't a second tier creativity. There's no hierarchy of creativity. You're being creative, and you need to acknowledge that within yourself. And if you're one of those people who has this story in your mind that you tell yourself, I'm not a creative person, start deprogramming that now. And the more you tell yourself that you're not, the less likely you are to actually notice those countless ways in which you are a creative being. If you want to tap into your creativity more, but are a bit intimidated by the concept, or you feel a bit of imposter syndrome for some reason, remember what Elizabeth Gilbert said: replace the word creative with curious, and then you can take the pressure off, because you revert to the pure curiosity that children have, and that's unattached to ego or expectation. Just be more curious. Just be curious, because then you start, even times when I'm like, what are the basic random ass questions that I have right now, and I'm just going to spend 5 minutes Googling random shit. That's curiosity, and that triggers creativity, and all of that is included. All of that is included. And actually, one of the criteria for intelligent life is creativity. And that definition is linked to self-awareness. We are very self-aware beings. You cannot be a human and not be creative.
I was laughing when you were talking about, like, Googling things and creative and things, because I had recently, for the show that I'm writing, had to Google things, how to make a bomb. How to make a homemade bomb.
Oh no, you're going to be flagged. You're
I don't care. Come for me. Come for me.
Oh
I did something else that was just so funny. I'm like, but I'm curious. That's what I should say.
I'm just curious.
But Elizabeth Gilbert said I'm curious.
I'm just curious. Leave me alone.
But
aren't you ever curious about self-destruction? I don't know where this voice
when you're
coming
poor,
from.
how do you make a bomb? Like, that's
yeah, for real. That's real creativity. Honestly, drug dealers are some of the most creative people.
Oh, amen.
Oh my God. Like, every Netflix documentary you ever watch on
the people on OnlyFans, you don't tell me that they're creative.
That's some creative shit.
They are making that money, and they are doing some creative shit to do it.
Exactly. So we have linked the articles that we pulled from for these statistics. We'll link that in the episode notes. And our charity nonprofit, as always, is relevant, will always be relevant. Black Lives Matter. Donate at blacklivesmatter.com. We are on Instagram and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Rate and review us, subscribe. The rating and reviewing helps us reach more people. Definitely. I've noticed that because there are some, I was searching the other day for a podcast on, but I didn't remember the name of it. And I just typed in generically, I just typed in astrology, and I noticed some of the ones that came up first are like way less, they're newer, and they have less, what was it? They're newer, and there were some metrics that were like, whoa, these haven't been around that long. Why are they jumping to the front? And it's because they have the most reviews. So we want to be discovered by people who are searching for podcasts like ours. So if you leave a review, it really does make a difference.
Yay.
Yeah. And we're on Patreon. So Patreon, $3 a month, $7 a month, $11 a month. For some bonus content. We have some really cute merch ideas that are in the works right now.
And exclusive merch to get right now.
Yes, we have that right now. Bonus content, extended interviews. You have the opportunity to request episode topics. So please join. I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Melissa Rosano.
Here's to turning meltdowns
into magic. Into creative magic.
Ooh, yes, yes. Yes, bitch.